এটা বেটার আছে না ମୁଁ କଥା ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ୍ এটা କେମିତି ଅଛି এটা ଠିକ ଅଛି ତ ଆଜ୍ଞା ନା ଟିକେ ତଳ ଉପର କରିବି କେମିତି କରିବି ମତେ କହିଦିଅ ରୁମ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ ସେ ତାର ଇଏଟା ଖୋଲା ଅଛି ବନ୍ଦ କରିଦଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ୍ এটা କେମିତି ଅଛି এটা ଠିକ ଅଛି ତ
ठीक আছে
ନା ଟିକେ ତଳ ଉପର କରିବି କେମିତି କରିବି ମତେ କହିଦିଅ ଲାଇଟ୍ ଠିକ ଅଛି
हां लाइट सर
ଲାଇଟ୍
टिके तळू कले टिके तळू को ना ना बेसी साइड एपट से ना हां 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 सेति सेति
ଠିକ ଅଛି
हां 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 अटी हां बस बस
ସେ ଲାଇଟ୍ ଟା ଟିକେ ବେଶୀ ହେଇ ଯାଉଛି ନା ସେଠି
हां दे से जा लाइट टिके होती है
हाय ममता मॉर्निंग
हां लाइट तळू कले टिके तळू ना ना बेसी
हां हां
साइड एपट से ना हां 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 सेति से
हां ठीक ଅଛି ସେଟା ଆମ ଆଇଡି ରେ ରହିବ ନା
हां बस बस
ସେ ଲାଇଟ୍ ଟା ଟିକେ ବେଶୀ ହେଇ ଯାଉଛି ନା ସେଠି So, Aishwarya, hi Mamta, morning.
Morning, Bhaina.
Morning, morning. Thanks for joining in. Is the other person also joining in?
Yeah, I was told that he'll join. Let's see.
Okay. Would you like me to take his name, something like that, or it's okay?
No, because if
Okay.
if he's not here, then there is no point taking his name. So
Okay.
I don't want. Okay.
Very good evening. Well, Mr. Pandey, very good evening.
Oh, good evening. Good evening, Professor Kar. Can you hear me?
Hello,
Can you hear me?
am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello. Is it okay? Is it okay? Am I audible? Okay. Thank you. Yes. Hello, Acharia. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Very
Yes,
good
sir.
evening. All right. All right. Now it's very clear. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Very good evening, sir. Namaskar.
Good evening, sir. Thank you.
All the best, sir.
Good evening and so am I audible?
Yes, you are. You are audible.
Yes, sir. Good evening and namaskar everyone. You would be delighted to know that FIDR has completed 21 years recently working in India and outside. I, Aishwarya Pandey, as a knowledge lead, would welcome to this edition of Think Hatchery Talk series. We are joined by a partner, the SGPA School of Governance and Public Affairs. Today's talk is on public policy and citizens' well-being. We are very happy and honored to have Shri Asit Tripathi, IAS, Principal Advisor to Chief Minister of Odisha, Chairman, Western Odisha Development Council. We all know him, but for the benefit of everyone present here and for those who are not present here, I would like to share more about his work and his accomplishments. Mr. Asit Tripathi hails from Odisha. He completed Masters in Political Studies and MPhil from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi in the early 80s. Administrative service in 1986 and allotted to Odisha his home cadre on the basis of his high position in the merit list. He has been posted in various challenging field assignments in this state across many districts. The first 10 years of his career was spent as head of subdivisions or district administration, where the responsibilities encompassed the entire gamut of local administration, which included management of law and order, crime control, supervision of welfare activities, coordination with line departments for various development projects, disasters and rescue in times of crisis. During this period, he served in Jajpur, Talcher, Rourkela, Nuapada, and Sundargarh. In the state capital, he was in charge of tourism, information technology, industrial infrastructure development, and energy administration in various states. He moved in the year 2004 to Slovenia for a year to do his MBA in public policy from ICPE Ljubljana. In February 2008, he went on a deputation to Government of India and served for 7 years in the Ministry of Commerce, overseeing foreign trade areas, being the territorial in charge of countries such as China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, etc., as well as leading the Agricultural Promotion Export and Development Authority, mandated to facilitate and oversee agri-export from the country. On his return to the state, he was in charge of Home Department, Development Commissioner, and was the Chief Secretary, having reached the highest rank in the Indian Administrative Service. After his superannuation, he has been appointed as Chairman, Western Odisha Development Council, in the status of Cabinet Minister and Principal Advisor to Chief Minister Odisha. As Principal Advisor to Chief Minister, he is currently pursuing his passion for rapid industrialization of the state, especially in the MSME sector. The industry care management introduced recently has become a highly successful example of resolution of issues faced by industrial community in various industrial clusters of the districts like Angul, Denkanal, Paradip, Baleshwar, Bhadrak, Mayurbhanj, Ganjam, Jagat Singhpur, Jharsuguda, Rourkela, Gajapati, Nayagarh, and Kandhamal. Similarly, a lot of innovative products in Odisha like eco-retreats, nature camps, etc. have been introduced with this initiative. He is an avid sportsman, having played tennis and leading Odisha's Tennis Association as its president for 2 decades. He is a keen golfer and president of Orissa Golf Association. He has also been elected as president of Bhubaneswar Club. He pursues dedicated academic interest in the areas of economics, trade, evolving strategic landmarks in technology and governance. Now, I would like to invite Sri Charudatta Panigrahi, mentor FIDR, to lay the context for today's talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon from people from various time zones, and welcome, sir. It's an honor to have you on this talk. And we at FIDR for the last, as Aishwarya mentioned, for about last 2 decades and more, have been doing specific things as far as public policy is concerned. One, we have been trying to help assist the public schemes in their delivery to the doorsteps. And second, we have been trying to assess the impact, how they're performing, how do we develop some course corrections, or how do we develop some course strengthening. And third, very specific, we would like to document all that's being done there so that we not only have learnings, but also keep the documentation for further future references. This is what overall we've been doing under FIDR's public policy initiatives. And as far as this topic is concerned, it's very heartening to know that, and I've told you this before also, that we often listen to public policy as something very obscure. So all these, gobbledygook, these big jargons, big technical, high-sounding words and semantics about public policy, but we very rarely come across practitioners, champions, senior executives, senior bureaucrats like you coming and telling us, addressing us and talking about the experience and what happens at the last mile, how it alters life. So whether it is capability approach or whether the oft repeated, oft quoted Bhutan happiness index model, or whatever it is, we have realized that well-being is multidimensional, and hence with all this technology and with all these economic interchanges, our lives have improved. We are now stronger, we are healthier, we are more literate, and we are richer also. But somehow, somewhere, with all these economic exchanges, we still think that it seems inadequate for both the rich and the poor alike. Because for the poor, we think it's overlooking them. For the rich, there is this instability or unpredictability, and for all of us, it's the ESG that's mattering. That's a matter of huge concern now. So how do we take care of this earth? Are we dirtying, destroying the earth? And what are we leaving for our children? All these things come to our mind. And amidst all of this, and when there is an economic exchange that maximizes the capability of the people, allow them to do what they want to do, then we realize that we are actually not looking at some utopia. We are looking at success. We are looking at organic deepening rather than some transcendental leap or something very esoteric, something very theoretical. So today, this evening, we would like to hear from you, from your experiences, how you have championed concrete last mile changes in various aspects of the lives of people, not only from the coastal area or the progressive area or the so-called developed area of Orissa, but also from the developing area of Orissa, also from the indigenous communities. And I know we have spoken about this often. You would like to start from examples and not from policy or not from theories. So, I would like to take an instance of concrete path breaking for the first time in India, which Orissa has done, and you were the architect of this, is the empowering of Panchayat Raj, empowering of sarpanches, and according them the power of collector to tackle COVID issue. And that's path breaking, that's out of the box, and that has probably given cue to other states of India to replicate in other parts of the country as well as in other parts of the world. And we would like to start from there. And before having the pleasure of listening to you, I would also like to thank everyone who are there in this meeting, and many who couldn't be there because of the time zones and the impediments. Because of that, we have Mamta, trustee from FIDR USA. We have Mr. Ajay Manti from US. We have people from UK. We have partners and our people from different states. I can see about 9-10 states of India. So this is a national talk or a national address. And this is something we continuously do, consistently we do, so that we not only invigorate youngsters, but also the practitioners with new thoughts, with new ideas and practical ideas. So all that matters is the change that we bring, and that's why we are here. And FIDR's core existence is due to the changes that it can bring, has brought, could bring. And over to you, sir, for your address.
Thank you, Charudat and Sharia, for a fairly long bio, which makes my task rather formidable. And let me congratulate you for having completed more than 2 decades of existence and excellent contribution to the society. And this digital medium enables us to reach out to so many persons who are in different states and I believe from different countries. So thank you very much for inviting me. You have actually ensnared me into this discussion. I would like to say this is a discussion rather than a lecture, because after I left JNU some three and a half decades ago, I haven't had the good fortune of attending long theoretical abstract classes of political theory and processes and structures, though I have had my share of some longish trainings and courses, as was mentioned, in Slovenia, which was public policy MBA. You know, having been in government all my life, I consider the way that government is described in very cut and dried fashion by academics very perplexing. Now, if you describe a fish inside an ocean, maybe you have the luxury of definition of a fish in this habitat, but if you ask the fish to describe its habitat, then he will be lost. So I'm somebody who has spent all my life in government, and one disclaimer that I am still not an IAS officer. I'm a retired IAS officer. So it's probably not correct to say I'm an IAS officer anymore. I see government as a very complex structure now. And, you know, this classical definition of government that it stands on 3 or 4 pillars, media being the 4th pillar, and executive, legislature, and judiciary are the pillars. I personally believe that legislature does play a very important role in government. They have different control systems, they have different processes. Most of the MLAs also have formal role in governance. They either occupy official positions at the state level, or they have very important roles in the different boards in the districts and in their constituency. Similarly, the MPs, by virtue of being in Government of India agencies, they have formal roles. Judiciary continuously adjudicates and discusses, as all of you know, and certainly people who are in India know, every second day judiciary pronounces very important decisions which have administrative ramifications, which typically ask governments to do this or that. It doesn't stop at interpreting law, but it says that you do things. Very recently, they have said that 1 kilometer from any sanctuary or national park, you cannot do anything. So this is not a law they are interpreting. They are saying this is something which has to be carried out. So it's to that extent. So the point that I'm trying to make is, when you discuss government in the context of public policy, we are discussing government as a structure which is extremely complex. I would say first that the legislature and judiciary, apart from the political executives and the civil servants, are indeed part of government. And then you mentioned about Panchayati Raj. The government in Bhubaneswar, typically characterized by the secretariat in its physical entity, is actually not the entire government. We have various ministries, departments, we have directorates, we have districts offices, we have line departments. Then the government further permeates into every village. We have blocks, we have panchayat samitis, Zilla Parishads. So the government spreads horizontally, it spreads vertically. We have 55,000 villages. Every village has government officials, semi-government officials, para workers, as we call them. Then we have Government of India officers in the state. They also have important roles. So you have to understand that the government is today extremely complex, and various stakeholders today play important role in impacting government processes. Media plays a very important role. Social media plays a very, very, very important role. Today, the print media, where there was an entry barrier, people who were educated and trained in journalism reported. And then the TV came, which was 24/7 television and hundreds of channels. People who are outside India, I don't know, they may know, they may not know, but now there are probably literally thousands of news portals. Anyone who has a video camera or a mobile camera can actually start a news portal. So we are discussing about a media which has grown beyond the recognition in over time. Then we have a civil society. And civil society is something which is not very, very, very uniform. It's not something which is very organized. It's not something which is vanilla. There are groups and groups and groups. There are powerful groups. There are less powerful groups. And then India is a champion, as you know, world champion in plurality. We have castes and creeds and tribes and language and regional ethnicity and in all kinds of pulls and forces. So we are eventually talking about a product or a structure, government, which, as I initially mentioned, after 35 or 36 years in government, I don't understand. So please don't expect me to tell you what government is and how policies are made. I'm going to try and tell you, as you correctly mentioned to me, tell us some insight as a practitioner for such a long time, having been in key position in government, how it is done, and how do you respond to crisis? How do you respond to situations? Or if there is a goal of the government, which government wants the state to go from point A to point B, what vision you envision? How do you frame policies and how do you assess its impact? What is the feedback system? So I would like in next 20-25 minutes to discuss that. Now, Orissa, as you know, is a very is a coastal state. It's historically known as a poor state. Let me not mince words. But we would like to believe that in last 2 decades, we have traveled some distance. And we have enjoyed political stability under the leadership of our present Chief Minister, Mr. Naveen Patnaik. We have lately adopted a vision which is very compelling vision of a very transformed state. We would like to be amongst the top 5 economies in the country. And we are adopting very, very strong initiative to achieve that objective. So at one point in time, at one spectrum of government, we have policies. You mentioned about public policies. So public policy, I would like to believe, is a legally enforceable initiative of the government, which has an outcome, which is aimed to have an outcome, which is fair, which is framed in a transparent manner, which is equitable, and there is a feedback mechanism, and then there are structures to implement that policy. So that is typically an act or a policy approved by the cabinet. So we have many of them. So I'm going to come to that a little later. But government also functions by a lot of administrative decisions. And the highest administrative body in the government is cabinet. So almost every 15 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we have a cabinet meeting, and we take a lot of decisions in cabinet. As chief secretary, during one of the most difficult times in recent memory, when we had COVID, we are still not out of it, but I believe all of us believe that the worst is over. And we took a huge number of decisions in the cabinet, and which required, obviously, at some point in time, some legislative approvals too. So there are a lot of decisions which the departments take, and they are empowered to take, which the ministers take, which the secretaries take, the directors, and they have been all authorized, and this is quite fleshed out. The powers are delegated. So this is all the government. Anyone who's not in the government, I think I'm trying to spell out the, the skeleton and the flesh. So is that okay, Charudat? I think then I'll come to the nitty-gritty.
No, absolutely.
Okay. So what do we, let me start from the macroeconomic indicators. In last 3, 4, 5 years, you may have read newspapers, and you can, I would like all of you to Google the basic data. I'm going to tell a few data points. Odisha's per capita income, which used to be one of the lowest in the world, in the country, now has gone up, and we are growing at 11.6% against 8.6% in the country. Our GDP growth rate is 7.1% against India's growth rate of 6.6% between 12-13 and 19-20. I'm saying 19-20 because 20 and 21 have been washout years.
Yeah.
Fiscal deficit. You have read about Sri Lanka and Pakistan and so many other countries, and fiscal deficit is which got them down. Fiscal deficit, current fiscal deficit is 3.2%, one of the lowest in the country. And India's current fiscal deficit is 6.9%, which is not very comfortable. Capital outlay. You must have followed the newspaper report that Odisha's budget has reached 2 lakh crores now.
Yes.
Which puts us amongst the middle income states. And our capital outlay as a percentage of GSDP is 3.8%, which is the highest in the country. Which means we allocate more money for roads, power lines, ports, hospitals, irrigation projects, etc., than any other state in the country as percentage of our GSDP. Our revenue deficit, you must have read about the indebtedness of many states, including Punjab and Rajasthan and many states. Our revenue deficit is as the percentage of GSDP, where negative is better. We are minus 1.88%, which is the best performance in the country. And these are all verifiable data. Our total outstanding liability of the entire state, not only the loans, all other liabilities, as a percentage of GSDP. GSDP is the gross social, the state gross state
Domestic product.
Domestic product is 26.7%. which is lowest in the country, along with two or three other states around that 26.76%. So how did we get here? Obviously by discipline. If you see our social indicators, which especially the Orias would know, our infant mortality was very high. We were, along with some other laggards in the eastern part of the country and northeast, our infant mortality one of the highest. It is, we have been rated as the best performance in reducing our infant mortality. Our infant mortality is really now less than 36. We have almost eradicated malaria. We have been feted by WHO and the Ministry of Health and Government of India. Our other social indicators put our NFSA, the National the Food Security Act performance, which means the procurement and the public distribution, we just been rated as the best in the country. So we are trying very hard to be amongst economically well-performing and efficient state. How do you do that? Because we all know that the machinery which delivers all this is the departments and the district officials and the block officials, etc., etc. We are trying few new approaches. First of all, from 1990, under the then Chief Minister, Honorable Chief Minister Biju Patnaik, we started downsizing the government. Everywhere in the country, the PSUs were downsized, they were privatized, they were liquidated, the sick ones. So this is the entire India story. And recruitment almost stopped. So today, around 1819, we had a review when we found that Orissa had population to bureaucracy ratio is one of the least, one of the worst ratios. So we had this space for recruitment. From 2019 till now, we have recruited more than 10,000 people. And the recruitment today, gives us fantastic manpower. We had initially tried a contractual agreement for some time, but at a senior position, the contractual agreement did not work. So we have permanent appointment at senior level, but we are getting excellent manpower. Even then, there is a problem of capacity. So I would like to divert for a while from general to specific. We found that the morale of the bureaucracy was actually very low, not in the higher level, at the lower level, we found. While the senior officials like the IAS officers or the OS officers, they were trained regularly, they had the good fortune of getting good perks and everything else. We found the field level officials or the karamcharis as we call them, like forest guards, the chain man in the revenue department of the Amins and the RIs, the PWD surveyors of so every department has people who are considered to be in the class 3 and class 4, we call them. Very, very low paid officials, no training. We also found that their promotion was delayed. But I'm absolutely going to particular now.
Yeah.
So we have about 3 lakh such employees in the group 3 and group 4 categories, we call them. And then in a chance discussion with the Chief Justice of Orissa, he said that I'm getting so many of these, PILs and these matters now that the Orissa Administrative Tribunal has been abolished.
Yeah.
All the service-related matters have to come to High Court. We are suddenly getting 70,000 new cases, which are administrative cases. And many of them are basically emanating from delay in promotion. So why don't you look at them, Mr. Tripathi? And then I had a discussion with my colleagues and in discussion with the Honorable Chief Minister. We had a 3 days promotion adalat. We found that the law permits us, the administrative law, the recruitment law, the training law, and permits us to take a lot of decisions which we are not aware or we were not taking. For example, if there is a disciplinary proceeding against an official, unless the disciplinary proceeding is finalized and disposed of, as we call them in administrative language, the person cannot be promoted. Now, what happens is, if the person has been initiated and a disciplinary proceeding has been initiated and it is not finished, which is 80 to 90% of the cases are not finished for a very, very long time. People are getting transferred, the acquiring officer is getting transferred, he doesn't take interest, it is a thankless job. You are somebody, become somebody's enemy suddenly. So departmental proceedings are initiated, they are not disposed of. Similarly, you have to have a certain number of annual confidential report to consider someone's promotion. There is a departmental promotion committee, DPC. Certain types of officials or karamcharis have to have some in-service training, mandatory training. So the fact is that they are never sent for training. And while in DPC is held, this is held against them. There are so many things which impact their promotions, and during their lifetime, they don't get promotion. Many of them don't get promotion. So we had this Adalat, and then I was the chief secretary, so I had few departments, and this was like, it was in three or four locations in the city, where we went out of the secretariat because we had the security issues here. And it was advertised, so we literally got some tens of thousands of old cases, and it actually opened our eyes. Then we passed ex parte orders saying that this person has been proceeded against 20 years ago. He has not been, his case has not been disposed of. So today I dispose of this case in favor of this person. Such orders were encouraged to pass because they had meaningless. For some small issue, he was proceeded against and he was suspended. His suspension was never revoked. And the long and short is, this decision of taking up these promotion cases in Adalat mode gave us a lot of insights. Then we came to government and said that in the group 3 and 4 categories where promotions are not given for years because there never is TPCs and
we can't hear you, sir. We lost out on your last 3-4 sentences. I think there is a broadband issue there. Yeah, now I think you're connected. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's back.
So
Voice is back.
the internet connectivity, as I mentioned to you, is not very good. So therefore, the online CCR processing was not done. So we abolished this CCR thing for group 3 and group 4 instances. We mentioned that the superior officer has to only record whether he is fit for promotion or not fit for promotion. This was an important reform. This is not a public policy of the nature that we discussed before some time, but this was an impactful decision. We also mentioned, we also decided in the cabinet that the departmental proceedings, if it is not disposed of for 2 years, for no fault of the employee concerned, his promotion will not be stopped. So a lot of decisions were taken which raised the morale of the government. And fortunately, immediately after that, the COVID came, where it was all hands on board. And in COVID, if I can just straight to your Sarpanch example, when the COVID struck India, it typically strikes the metros first, Delhi and Bombay. So we had 3-4 months of lead time. And we realized that Bombay, Surat, Pune, Thane, Bhiwandi, then all the places where Korea basically workers. You can hear me now?
Yes, absolutely clear.
So they work. So we realized very quickly that state, because the factories were closed, and the local administration, to the point of harassment, they stopped the migrant workers to go anywhere except home. So there were, stampede in the railway station. So when we got the first lot of the migrants to Orissa, we realized that this is a big problem in our hand, and we had COVID, which was happening in Orissa slowly then. Very, very quickly and professionally, we created a migrant portal. It was kind of, on the trot. While we were developing the portal. And the portal was manned by, something like 200 people at some point in time, volunteers and home guards and, all kinds of people who came and volunteers. So we mentioned, we had desks for different cities. We would have about 10 desks for Surat only, and Telangana, all kinds of people. Then at my level and by the Home Secretary's level, we talked to the collectors of those areas. Fortunately, we found a lot of Oriya collectors in those places. The Surat commissioner was an Oriya then. A lot of, the hotspots were Surat, Pune, Bhiwandi, Pune, Thane area, Coimbatore, Tirupur, that area, and then Telangana area where the brick making and all those things. So we knew who is coming, and then we coordinated the migrant trains. We requested the Indian Railways for trains to be special trains to be, and then when they came here, we received them, and then we took them to quarantine centers. We had to plan end to end. So when they arrived in Chhatrapur police railway station or few other railway stations, they were taken by buses by the collectors from there to quarantine centers, because they were considered, imagine today people don't realize how much dreaded COVID was.
Yes.
In March 2020, it was like a plague happening or something. So they had to be quarantined. You quickly realize that these people, like Ganjam had 3 to 4 lakh people there. We realized this is not something which the government can handle. And fortunately, Ganjam already had a culture of strong PRI, Panchayati Raj institutions, working with the government.
Yes.
So we quickly realized that sarpanches need to be the head of the quarantine center. We gave them a name, I'm forgetting the name, but it was a quarantine center. Basically, they were there for 15 days so that if there was an outbreak, it could be contained. Because the villagers also did not want them to return home. There was, law and order issues. And we, under the Disaster Mitigation Act, the collector has the powers to decide about what is a disaster and what processes can be taken, and it can, short circuit few of the legal administrative impediments. There was nothing in the law to prevent us to designate anyone as collector. So we came out with this idea that we will designate the sarpanchas as the DMs for the district in their respective areas. This single decision saved us from this 1 million people who returned getting into the villages, because they were certainly more, there was more probability of their having COVID virus than the local population, because all our cases then came from outside. So in COVID management, these are not public policies as such, but we had to take a lot of decisions on the trot. And we knew that a lot of people are going to be needing hospital attention. So, Orissa even today doesn't have too many big hospitals, but we have our local hospitals like KIMS and some hospital and, Vikas Hospital, Tata Medica and all that in different places. We had an excellent PPP partnership. And believe you me, those structures today, when I look back, are so strong PPP models that today, after advertisement and handled by consultancies, they are not able to handle that. It was so smooth. So we guaranteed them 6,000 rupees for a 15 days quarantine, and if necessary, some paracetamol or some remdesivir or something. plus, the consumables. I remember the initial thing. And then, of course, since they were part of our management, we calibrated our expenditure. So we had excellent hospitals ready to have. So Orissa was one of those few states which never had run on the hospital beds. Similarly, I remember that we had the oxygen thing, which is covered by National Geographic and BBC and
Yes.
everybody. So when the Honorable Chief Minister, after my retirement, appointed me as the chairman task force, oxygen task force, we realized that we don't have oxygen in hospitals. Oxygen, typically in Cuttack SCB Medical College, which is our biggest medical college, would have about 100 beds. And believe you me, it was not pipeline. It was cylinder. So hospital beds with pipeline was basically a function of Apollos and Amri and none, and that also very, very few hospital beds. But within 2 months, we got we call them liquid medical oxygen tanks, LMO tanks. We got implemented them in all our major hospitals. We got the steel plants in Orissa. Orissa is the steel capital of the country. In Kalinganagar and Angul, Raurkela, we have about 35 million tons of steel plant operating right now. And by 2030, our Oriya friends who are outside Orissa will be proud of this fact that we will have 100 million tons of oxygen steel making in Orissa by 2030. It is happening right on the ground right now. So we had these steel makers, we had meetings, and then we met them, asked them to make, of course, Government of India also helped. Ministry of Steel definitely helped. So we made these steel plants made oxygen for us, and we transported these oxygens by trucks, talking to the oxygen deficit states like, of course, Delhi, Kerala, and all. And eventually, one of the novelty that we did was we found the oxygen trucks, which are very few then. We're traveling from Delhi and coming back within 7. The return time was 7 days time. So with discussion with the railways and in the PMO, we had oxygen trains, and we flagged those oxygen trains and it was great satisfaction to us. So from Jajpur Road, we had an oxygen train which had all the trucks on the train, and it went to Delhi and it went to North India, and then we became the oxygen capital. That is how it was described. So coming back to my general narrative, and how much time do I have? 10 minutes?
Yes, about 10-15 minutes, because we wish we had more time with you.
No, it's okay.
Go on and on.
No, I didn't intend to, because I just got excited about the COVID.
No, absolutely.
So I can give you a few more examples before I return to my narrative. This out-of-turn promotion. We had one out-of-turn promotion. Another thing I must tell you is this more school and more college initiative that the Honorable Chief Minister started. Many of you who are not in Orissa today would be very pleasantly surprised that we have nearly 10,000 government high schools, either with government or their fully aided government, their government high schools. We decided that out of 10,000 in 2021, calendar year 21, followed in the calendar year 22, all the high schools will spend minimum 50 lakhs to make at least 2 smart classrooms and generally upgrade. So then what happened? The collectors and the MLAs and the MPs and the PRI and everybody, alumni, got excited. And this 50 lakh became 1 crore, 2 crores in many, many, many places. So if you have access to these photographs, then you can kindly see your own high schools, how they have changed. I would like to take a bet. About 20% of these government high schools are better than any public school in Bhubaneswar today. Everybody chipped in. The CSR people chipped in. The MLAs and MPs, and like I'm chairman WODC, I'm funding a lot of high schools. So it has become a mission. And the more school campaign started from there. Government said that the alumni association, if it pays 10 lakhs to a school, then government will pay 20 lakhs. So it has to be a structured process. So then we had brand ambassadors, people who have gone through government high schools, like I have gone through government high schools, Oriya medium government high schools. So, it was systematically done. Now there is a statutory board of which Mrs. Bachi, Subrato Bachi's wife, in her own, role, she is a famous author and a philanthropist, Susmita Bachi. She is the chairman of that. Similarly, the more college campaigns started in that. Another thing I'm very proud of, I must mention to you, people who are not from Orissa or from Orissa or who have recently visited Orissa must have seen these eco retreats. Orissa, unfortunately, has a lot of beautiful places, but does not have good hotels yet. And then there are laws and laws like environmental laws, there are coastal regulations, zoning, and then there is an eco-sensitive zone. So you actually can't have good hotels in good locations. It's very difficult in Orissa or India today to go to a good location and build a hotel. We have innovated. We have said that in the beaches and in good places, we will have temporary construction. So starting with 1919 and today in 22, we have three years of eco retreats, which are absolutely top class luxury. We call them glamping in Konarak, in Bhitarkanika, and then we have it in Fulmani, one of those hill stations, and many places in Sambalpur, etc., etc. So this is giving an idea to the investors, local investors, to kind of mimic those and then create those. And there are 50 odd eco camps, which are slightly lower, but they are also air conditioned tents and managed by the SHGs. We have our SHG mission is very strong. They already do about 2,000 crore government business. We want to achieve 5,000 crore government business by 2024. We have 70 lakh women who are enrolled in these SHGs. Our Mission Shakti is a very, very strong brand, and as much PRI, Mission Shakti also is involved in governance. They are they take jobs like meter reading, they are doing pisciculture and anything. I'm also something which I personally involved with, the cage culture, which I would like to mention to you. Orissa is gradually become self-sufficient in fisheries. And now we are calling that export, but some other states we are sending. We have a lot of reservoirs. And cage culture in Norway, it started. And now China, it has saturated to the point that it is environmentally, it has become really bad. If you have large cages, which are floating metal cages with nylon, nets, which hang on clear water, like Hirakud, Indravati, Kolab, and big dams, excellent arrangement for growing high-value fish in a ecologically and very sensible way of rearing fish. And in a small size cage, you can get up to a small size, meaning about, let us say, about 100 square meter. You can get 30 tons, and you can get it twice, which is like 10x. So we studied the entire country, and then there are some states like Maharashtra and Jharkhand began it many, many years ago in Orissa, in India. But we have innovated, and they have not succeeded much, because every reservoir in the country has the fishing community. They have the right over the water. And the governments have not found a way to go around the fishing community and invite private investment. In Hirakud, that's a model anyone can study. We have really, really done a win-win situation. We give 50% of the auction money taken by the private bidders to the PFCS. So much so that every PFCS today wants in their area, because the PFCS do extremely marginal fishing, almost no fishing. They do only this. They have small canoes, and they do hardly. They don't stock. They don't give feed. Consequently, they don't have any fish. So they are kind of extremely poor fishermen. So now, sitting at home and working in this cage culture, today we have close to about 500 such cages. It is a beautiful scene to see those cages. And that is something which I'm personally very associated and very, very proud. We have also tried very interesting cases of, in Orissa, our entire country, we are very paddy oriented, very, very marginal agriculture. Our land size is very small, being a populous country. And small size does not enable you to invest a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money. Farmers. We have agrarian laws which do not permit entrepreneurs to buy land in many states. In Himachal, you can't buy land if you are not a Himachal. In Maharashtra and UP, if you are not a farmer already, you can't buy. So I don't understand how you can be a farmer already. But if you are not a farmer, you cannot buy land. So there are a lot of entry barriers into farming. And the farmers are gradually getting small and small holdings. They can't invest money.
That is the problem.
So the aggregation of this, there is hardly any surplus. And so the business model in agriculture is not happening. We are trying very interesting models in Orissa through farmers producers organizations. And that's the only way to go about it, because I find that you can't have radical reforms in agriculture. We have seen what has happened in the country. So we have done a lot of exercise. These are decisions and administrative decisions, not sometimes backed by policies. So coming back to the core of my discussion now, and I'll close now. So what is permeating our current governance model? The Honorable Chief Minister on 15th of August 2019 announced that for public service, a citizen should not come to a government office if he can get it on 3 modes. One is through online access, or through a kiosk, which is a revenue model can be developed, and the entrepreneur can give him service at a cost. So he can be a stakeholder with government. Third is he can be given a courier service. So this was, he said, has to be implemented in 1 year. So we went on overdrive, and I was the chief secretary then. And then the Honorable CM also announced that 5T has to guide our governance, because there is a lot of government. It's not that government doesn't have bright people, but the government structure being government structure, there are a lot of issues in government. You can't hire or fire. You have something which you cannot change overnight, as I mentioned to you. But you have to have speed. If you want to have transformative agenda, you have to have speed. And if you want to have speed, and if you want to achieve 10x tomorrow, then you have to change the law. Because if you have mutation, you understand mutation. Suppose I buy land from you, my title must go to you, and that process takes 6 to 8 months time, because the law provides that 45 days it is to be notified. I'm giving one law. So if you want to do it in 7 days time, it's possible, but you have to change the law. You have to change the processes. So every department was asked to develop 5T charters. And this 5T, I must tell you, is very, very simple. Transparency, teamwork, technology, timeliness, leading to transformation. So transformation is the buzzword now, because incremental change is not going to take Orissa to a leading state. Impossible. We have to transform our processes. We have to build capacity in the government. We therefore have any number of knowledge partners working in the government right now. I mentioned to you about the capacity building. We have any number of programs of capacity building with the local management institutes for our fisheries officers, for our industrial promotion officers. We have created a DIPA called District Industry Promotion Agency, which is like DRDA, in which we have taken a lot of MBA grads who are working with the collectors. So we probably have now thousands of people from leading consultancies who are working not only with district collectors, down below. I work with a very strong consultancy in my team at principal advisor. So our working has changed. We have, to certain extent, learned how Niti Aayog, from a very very obtuse organization, which was a very classical, old, moribund organization, worked with a lot of young professionals. So Amitabh Kant and I, we worked together in Ministry of Commerce and Industries. So we have exchanged notes, and we are working with a lot of capacity building is happening. So every department today has to develop in the beginning of the year a 5T charter, which the CMO approves, the Chief Minister's Office approves. We sit with those departments. So one example I gave you, that mutation has to be done in 7 days' time. We gave IDCO, which is our Industrial Development Organization, that you are taking 6 months to a year in giving land. We want you to give land in 1 month's time. Developed industrial land. Then you work out your processes. So every department today has to develop 5T charters. Well, this is 5T. This is, believe you me, if you come to Orissa today, you will hear this word a lot. 5T, 5T. There is in fact a 5T secretary. The Honorable CM's private secretary, who is also a secretary rank officer, is the 5T secretary, and the Honorable CM drives the 5T himself. Then the CM announced the next year saying that I will have a feedback mechanism, which is called Mo Sarkar, which is absolutely unique. It is not there in any other state. I can tell you this. What happens in the Mo Sarkar is we have nearly 250 services, which is in a portal. Every person who comes to a hospital, police station, block, anywhere, any public service, or takes an online service, his ID is generated, his mobile number is taken, and that portal throws random numbers to me, Chief Secretary, CM, every minister. There are about 200 odd people, and we have to call 10 persons every day. And if that number belongs to a person who visited a hospital, we have to ask 5 questions. These are all menu driven, 5 questions only. Did you pay any money, supposing it's a free service? Were you treated well? And similar simple questions. And then based on the feedback, Mo Sarkar feedback, anyone who is not asking question, a red trigger is generated in the portal, MIS. So he knows that he's not called sufficient number of people, or the minister is not called sufficient number. It's all monitored. And then based on the feedback, which is very interesting, very, very good feedback, the departments are rated and good performance is rewarded. We have framed an out-of-turn promotion policy. We have any number of like LTC in foreign countries is allowed, because we found that promotion, something which gets into judiciary. We have a out-of-turn promotion committee. We have given out-of-turn promotion, but we found that it's getting a little complicated. So therefore, we are kind of coming out with a bouquet of incentives. We have also, this is not something which I'm proud of, but I'm going to tell you, we have also compulsorily retired hundreds of people based on the Mo Sarkar feedback. People who are past 50, earlier there is a government rule, Government of India under Mr. Modi started this also, but this was already there in the service rules. So Mo Sarkar is extremely strong. It is already grounded, and 5T is a big charter. So this is what permeates our governance now, transformative agenda. And the last thing I'll tell you is that, governance, like anything, like private job or civil society or the kind of work, for people like us who are in leadership position, it has to happen with passion. You have to work an extra mile. This is something which is the mantra, at least in the leadership position in the districts, in the blocks and panchayats. This has to be there. So I will end my saying that there are huge challenges even today. I'm not saying that everything is hunky-dory, even today. To give you 2 examples, Orissa is today 30 million ton steel producer. We have barely any downstream projects. Our MSME presence is very, very small. We are working at it. We are a surplus power situation state. We began the reform first in the country. Even today, our per capita power consumption is one of the lowest. So there are many challenges in every area. I'm not saying everything, but I think we have a model today to address them, and we have a huge amount of passion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. It's not a mere thank you, which might sound very plastic, but it's essentially a part one, I would say. If I would have the liberty, I would say that this is not the only one that, or only one time that we are listening to you. It's part one. And more importantly, we have many youngsters, many practitioners, young professionals also in this group. And I would urge them to read the story, to understand this and participate in this. So by this entire transformational story and action that you've taken, you've actually raised the bar in the country also. So there are many other areas or many other communities where people would like to replicate. And I've heard so many times from other people also about what they would like to do with this Odisha example. And we have with us Asha. Asha Vinekar is our board member, and she is also the co-founder of Goa Livelihoods Forum, where they are working at the last mile with about more than 45,000, 50,000 women, and trying to make them entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is something which interests her a lot. And we know that you are not given to rhetoric, and you have always been a strong votary of entrepreneurship. Unless there is income increase, unless there is economic development, you can't think of well-being, or you can't just talk about well-being. Well-being doesn't happen with talks. So I would, and she's got a point to discuss with you. I would urge Asha to kind of share her thoughts after listening to you. Asha? Asha, you are on mute. Asha.
Yes. Sir, let me tell you that this was such a learning with your vast experience. This has been a learning experience for us and very motivating for us. I'm joined here with my team, the full team which works for rural department, and they are MBAs, MSWs, all professionals. And you have similar, we are from the coastal belt. You are from Orissa and we are from Goa. There is a lot of similarity. So a lot of learning lessons from what you have delivered today. So I'm sure my team also will be very much motivated after listening to your talk. And what I want to know from you, sir, that do you think that this has been successful because of your outreach of the public schemes, and because you have strictly monitored it? So I would like to know, because a lot of things you have done out of box, the challenges which you have met during COVID, whether it is in the field of education, health, or ecotourism, or you said regarding fishiculture. So many things to learn from you. I would like to know how you have been successful from a state like Orissa, whether it was because of strict monitoring, planning, what it was.
Thank you so much for very kind words. Like many states are doing excellent work. We also are doing some good work. As I mentioned to you, there are still areas we are not very good at, but we are trying. One of the strength of our government of Orissa, under Mr. Naveen Patnaik's regime, is political stability. So you may know that currently he is in his 5th term, and He's a highly popular chief minister, and his personality yeah, is okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
His personality gives a lot of strength to our delivery process. Number two, as I mentioned to you, our governance, whenever we have a challenge, I'm saying something which may sound a little cliche, but it is true. If you have a important task, then there is all hands on board approach. It's not one department. To give you an example, if let's say 4 lakhs, 5 lakh people are to be evacuated, it is not like just the revenue department doing, the entire state government is doing. If it is a tourism initiative, it is not tourism department doing. It is the district collector and hundreds of officials doing. So we have gradually evolved into a very good framework of whole state approach. I think that is something gives us a very unique strength. Third thing is there is a lot of transparency and participative approach. The fact that nearly 70 lakh women are part of our governance and they are associated in different places. I mentioned to you that they are in the PDS. The entire PDS today is practically run by the SHG groups. Any new initiative in the districts, like hospital cleaning, janitor service, or electricity franchises, reading, any new thing, it is more often than not the SHG people are grabbing the business idea. So this women participation gives us a very, very strong, it rooted our initiatives. So there is already a lot of acceptance amongst our people, and our participation in decision making and policy framing and implementation has a lot of participation. And there is a two-way, it's not top down. It's like, I don't decide today that I want to do this. So a lot of things comes from ground and goes to the ground. So there is a lot of acceptance. And as I mentioned about the PRI, SHG, so this and the whole state approach, this gives us a unique strength. And I would also like to mention that Honorable Chief Minister's approach is very no-nonsense approach, is very, very firm, and he is totally zero tolerance for corruption and malfeasance. So that has cleaned the bureaucracy, I would say, to some extent. I would not say that it has cleaned the entire system. So corruption in public life, lack of integrity, these are they are diseases which weakens the delivery mechanism. To a certain extent, I would like to say that we are well placed in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Asha. Thank you, sir. Sir, Zubair, our board member, he has joined from University of Cork, Ireland. And he's got a question which is related to what you just mentioned about the top-down approach, and particularly to the nutrition budget, which is actually a rare, a combination, I would say, a conjunction of both agri policy and the PDS, unique again. But his question is, I don't see him here, so I'm asking on his behalf to send me this.
He's there.
Yeah, but he's not responding, so probably he's muted or something. So his question is, has it been a top-down, or how much of Gram Sabha or PR or SHG is being involved in this decision making? Because this is nutrition and this is absolutely doorstep impact. So how much of that has happened? And if you could share some instances.
In fact, I've not got the entire question fully, but before you had this Poshan Abhiyan in Government of India, much before that, we had Mamta, where we fund the pregnant and lactating mother for 2 childbirths, and this money is paid by DBT. So our para workers like the Anganwadi worker, Asha Didi, and the PRI, they monitor this extremely well. So the Odisha has a problem. Odisha had a problem of not only infant mortality but morbidity and the other things which the stunting, etc. We have improved dramatically in that because of this Mamta scheme, which is and we have not joined the Government of India thing. I think we have lately agreed to join because Government of India is one child birth, and it is less than the Government of Odisha's initiative. So it's a success. Number two, we have started the millet mission, which has been imitated by many states,
Yes.
as you know. So in our dryland farming, a dryland area, we found millet which was getting extinct. Is an excellent crop which is a rain-fed agriculture, and we had many varieties of these millets. So we started a millet mission with a strong knowledge partner and implementation partners. We have NGOs in place. We have a budget. So today, millet is grown in a fairly extensive area, and millet has become a staple food which is very nutritious. And the best part of the millet is that millet sells at a price higher than the MSP. So there is no pressure on procurement, and farmer gets much more remunerative income. So our millet mission and nutrition program, which is government under government schemes, is very well integrated.
Thank you, sir. So we also have our long-standing partners, Microsoft team here, and we have been thinking, I just wanted to share this, we have been thinking of finding digital solutions to some of the issues to make them even better and more efficient. So we'll get back to you on those concrete proposals later. They're also here on this platform. Now I would like to open the platform for any questions, answers, suggestions, thoughts. Anyone?
Yeah, I'll take one question, Mr. Charudatta.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you,
Thank you.
Mr. Tripathi, Mr. Asit Tripathi. This is Ravinder Raju here. And
Thank you,
I
Mr.
have
Raju.
had the opportunity to meet Mr. Tripathi in Odisha while I was in Paradeep Phosphates, and his excellent contribution to the state, and the way he contributed, the way he is as a person. I know him also as a person and as a tennis player on the court. So I have an overall experience with Mr. Asit Tripathi. Thank you for all that support you have given me during those days. And today, specific to the topic, I have one question to you. Having spent so many years as a good administrator in the state, as a country, what type of vision you see for a socio-economic system, for future of this country as a leader, as an administrator? How do you see your vision for developing this socio-economic system as an administrator?
So
you're on mute, Mr. Asit. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you after a long time. Yes.
It's a very broad spectrum question. So
yeah, very broad spectrum.
But I like to kind of say a few words on that. You said socio-economic, so let me say socio first.
Okay. See, for me, the economic part is also.
No, I'll say economic. I'll come to
important,
economic.
yeah.
I'll also come to. I'll come also. I'll make one statement about socio and one statement about economics. About India, as I mentioned to you, is a world champion in plurality, and our constitution is a document which is a great document, and our preamble is a glorious statement on recognizing the plurality of the people, giving freedom to everybody, and tolerance. So in India, I think without tolerance for each other, we cannot progress. I will stop at that. So India is a plural society, and that is our strength. Unity in diversity maybe a slogan which is not mentioned anymore, but it's a very real thing. And India's strength is plurality. We have to respect plurality. About economics, I mentioned about agriculture. You know, agriculture is about 18%, I think, nationally, the contribution of GDP to agriculture's contribution to GDP. More than 50% people, in one way or other, are dependent on agriculture. And it's not difficult to understand why they are poor. 50% versus 18%. Okay. So agriculture is considered to be not an industry. I would like to believe that agriculture is also an industry. And industrial reforms have been carried out by government because there is a strong advocacy for reform. In agriculture, who would benefit from reform have no voice. People who are middlemen or people who benefit from present kind of agriculture have become the spokesperson of agriculture, and they stand on reform. They are against reform. This is my belief. So agriculture reform is overdue. And if agriculture is not reformed, then a large majority of people are going to be poor. We need to make agriculture a commercially vibrant activity which must respond to market. You cannot produce which you continue to produce because you don't only that to produce. You need to produce what market requires.
Yes.
And agriculturists need to invest a lot of money in capital and technology in agriculture because it is an industry. So therefore, a large majority of people do not have any business to stay in agriculture. They have to migrate out of agriculture. These are very strong and anti, these are not very popular words maybe, because I mentioned to you, people who speak about agriculture are against the interest of people who live on agriculture.
That's true. I think that's well said. And I am also from the agriculture background. You know, I am in the fertilizer industry for a long period of time, serving the farmers of the country. And currently also, Mr. Asit, currently I am in Vedanta as a CEO for fertilizer business. We are starting a new business for fertilizers in Vedanta and starting from Rajasthan. Great. So that is where I am today. So I'm in Udaipur assisting them. You have said it well. I think the socio-economic part of it, unless there is the industry orientation towards agriculture, that reform is still pending, and a lot of work has to be done. I fully agree with you. And we need to advocate. That advocacy has to come from all the bodies and the relevant bodies within the system, or whether it is industry body or the agricultural forums. I think it's well said, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for the answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Ravindra. I think Mr. Mahanti has got a question.
Yeah, thank you, Charudatta. Are you referring to me? I'm the only Mahanti?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the only one, but the privileged one.
Okay. Thank you. This is Ajay Mahanti. I'm actually dialed in from Washington, D.C. So I live in the suburb of Washington, D.C. in Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Tripathi, for your excellent talk and covering the policies of the government and also your views on the general policy, as an overall progress of Odisha, where it is leading to. The two-part questions, one is related to skill development and MSME sector. The Odisha has one of the highest youth unemployment in the country. And the last statistics, even before COVID, it was one of the highest, if my recollection is right. So what is the policy changes you see that will be reflected in the coming years or have been implemented in the MSME sector or the entrepreneurship sector so that these unemployed youth can be deployed, positively and can contribute to the top economy, in the country? I mean, if the state has to go to the top 5, right now it's of course, it's way in the bottom 10 or 11. Something like that.
That's an excellent question. In skill building, which is very important, we have a statutory authority now, which is headed by Subrata Bakshi. And excellent work is being done, which is being recognized everywhere. Our IITs, as I mentioned to you, our schools, our IITs, some 70, 80 odd IITs have become very good. A lot of initiative are being taken in skill building. And statistics would prove you that if you see some of our published statistics, our position in the country today in skilling is recognized. In enterprise building, I would agree with you, is something which we need to do work on, because Orissa traditionally is not known to be an enterprising state. We find people who are outside the state who come in the state, domiciled areas, as a community, anecdotally are much more enterprising in the state. So, but we find a change in the present generation of Oriya youths. We find them a lot of risk-taking abilities and attitudes. People like elsewhere, like other metros, Oriya youth who are working in fairly good jobs are quitting the jobs and starting startups. So both in the startup ecosystem and skill, as far as government is concerned, government is doing. But this is work in progress, as I mentioned to you. But interesting work is happening. In case if you have time, kindly Google our Skill Orissa and startup ecosystem, because we have recently recruited one of the well-known IT professional in the country, Dr. Onkar Rai, as our Startup Orissa chairman. So both Subrata Bakshi and Onkar Rai are well known. So they are heading our authorities. So this is for your information, please. Charudatta, if you don't mind, I'm actually required somewhere else now.
Sure. I
Thank
think
you very much.
we'll just take another last one from Dr. Palita. He is the Vice Chancellor of Central University of Orissa. He's got a question. So after that, we'll close it. Dr. Palita.
Thank you, Charubabu, for arranging such a nice meeting, and to listen to Mr. Asit Kumar Tripathi, who is a very respected and reputed administrator, and his contribution is well known. I have one question, that certainly a lot of transformation changes are taking place in the state in the last several years. And during the COVID time, perhaps we have earned a lot of kudos from all over the world, how our Chief Minister managed this show with you people. And I have one question, that while taking Odisha forward and taking into 5 or 6 among the countries, India, that major part of Odisha, particularly Western Odisha and Southern Odisha, they are lagging behind. Many of them are aspirational districts. Lot of things have to be done. So what are the government plan, and what is your projection, that how we can bring these people, Southern Odisha people, who are majority of them are tribal, and Western Odisha who are migrating, lot of them. So how to bring them to the mainstream, and how they can be a partner in socio-economic development? This much.
Well, thank you for this question. What you mentioned is certainly a reality. Southern Orissa continues to be one of the more backward part of the state, and Western Orissa, of course, Sundargarh, Jharsuguda, Sambalpur are no longer the so-called backward districts anymore.
Yes.
Also Bargarh.
Yes.
Kalahandi is no longer that Kalahandi. It is 100% irrigated now, as you know, because of Indravati. So, I'll only mention one specific example of what we are doing. And from Rourkela to Malkangiri, we have built a state-sponsored highway, which is called Biju Expressway. You must have heard about it.
Yes.
Okay. So, only in few places we are using the national highway for connectivity, but it is mostly state highway. It's 4-lane with median. Excellent 4-lane highway, which is, I would like to claim, better than the national highway. So this is from Rourkela to Sohela. Sohela to Junagadh is Greenfield Road, which goes through the, the so-called LWE affected area. This road is a very major investment by Orissa government to open up Western Orissa and Southern Orissa to investment. And within a month, we are going to hear we will announce we are naming it as Biju Economic Corridor.
Okay.
And within a month, you are going to hear from us. It will be a phenomenally more attractive industrial policy for incentive for investment in the identified nodes on the corridor. Our capital investment subsidy and the other subsidies. Now the budget is in session, the assembly is in session. I don't want to mention more, but we are coming with a very radically strong incentive package for investment into the Biju Economic Corridor nodes. So we are aware of this issue, and there are several initiatives happening. Thank you.
The last one. We have been listening a lot regarding the air connectivity to these two parts, Southern Odisha and Western Odisha. As of course, Jharsuguda has got one, but I think it is a imminent requirement. So I request your kind intervention. And
thank you. You are aware what we have done for Utkala and Jaipur airport.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Now I would have Professor Manoj Kar to sum up.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I must say that from my school days, where you happened to your ADM in Raurkela, especially in my college days, I heard a public lecture I listened to. The inspiration is so vibrant since those days. And I am the one on behalf of School of Governance and Public Affairs, my faculty team, as well as my students. I congratulate you for such a brief and elaborate report, making the clear message that if we want to understand Odisha and its governance is the sole repository. Okay. In the present era, we saw that in the new education policy, I am the one who spent last 30 years in Mumbai Delhi Development Academic Corridor. Last 1 year I am in Odisha. But I am so excited to see whatever essential you said, what made. And in new education policies, the new phrase is university social responsibility. But I am so clear now after listening to you how administrative social responsibility is so vibrant in the state of Odisha, where governance speaks, and governance speaks not for action but also for the transformation of state. And what accounts for the success of this governance effectiveness in state, you clearly delineated, sir. That is leadership, which is very clear on its milestone, especially the commitment, the clarity, and the continuity. These are the three benchmarks in terms of tall leadership. That's and the continuity of the government, and that is encouraging the inspiration of the entire functionaries and whole state approach. And the third one is transparency and participatory. And the network that is created, largest self-help group network, where the empowerment of women is very much sparked in the state. And what India must learn from the state, whenever we see the most tragic time, we all spend in COVID time, but Odisha was actively contributing to national aspirations while sustaining the zero casualty in the state. And that's the biggest possible because of the tall leadership and the governance in place, which is targeting towards the transformation of the team, as well as the 5T that you very rightly dedicated to 5T. And this all encourages the future practitioners and as well as the students and the multi-sectoral civil society and industrial houses and the researchers to move together and a whole state approach in a roadmap where sustainable development goals can be approached by 2030 in the state like ours. And you rightly pointed out very clearly that there are so many efforts are in place, but there are much scopes to come forward. So how to sustain this road railing inspirations? And that's the biggest challenge you put before all of us, and it is highly encouraging and inspirational in true sense. I must thank here, and I must stop here, and I leave it up to the mentor. And if I mentor from FDR, FIDR, Mr. Charu Panigrahi, to share the vote of thanks. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here from about three continents and a few countries and a few states. And not only that, it's not about the representation from different corners, but what we are going to do after this talk. And let me assure you and everyone that this is not a one-off talk that we are going to forget after this. We're going to continue building action points after this. We will have different task forces. We already have them. So that will constitute the practitioners and the students and the faculty and whoever is concerned and relevant, and put them to groups who can help you, sir, in your different endeavors and efforts. And that will be all pro bono, and that will be the little contribution to nation building, little contribution to our state building. So many things are happening, but it's required to disseminate all this. At least people should be aware of the changes that are happening and the key players involved in this. And thank you so much. And as I said earlier, now we are thinking of working on part 2, part 3, part 4, and the part goes on. So I'll be working with my team to constitute the next subsequent talks. So as you said, not talks, but discussions. However, we take this and close this on a very serious note of having subsequent documentations and being disseminated there.
Thank
properly
you. Thank
and
you.
relevantly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.